I never believed in love at first sight, not really. It always sounded like something out of the novels I kept stacked by my bed, their covers soft and worn from being read too many times. But then again, so much of life seems impossible until it is staring at you, unblinking, demanding to be acknowledged. That was how it felt the morning I met Daniel. It was late spring, the kind of morning when the city seemed to hum with possibility. The air was warm enough that I had shed my jacket, and I could feel the sunlight settling gently on my skin. I was walking to my favorite cafe, tucked away in a side street that smelled faintly of roasted beans and fresh croissants. I remember adjusting the strap of my bag, distracted by a song playing in my headphones, when I bumped, hard, into someone rounding the corner. Books scattered to the pavement. Not mine, his. He knelt quickly, murmuring apologies, and I dropped beside him, my hands brushing against the worn spine of a poetry collection as I helped gather them. When our eyes met, something inside me shifted. His were a deep, thoughtful shade of brown, flecked with gold where the sunlight caught them. He smiled, sheepishly, as though he was embarrassed by the mess. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice warm and unhurried, like the first sip of coffee on a cold day. "It's my fault," I replied, though we both knew it wasn't entirely true. For a moment, neither of us moved, just crouched there in the middle of the sidewalk, surrounded by scattered books and the faint laughter of strangers passing by. It felt strangely intimate, as if the city had decided to pause and wait for us. He introduced himself. "Daniel. A student of literature," he explained, always carrying more books than his arms could handle. I told him my name, feeling shy but curious, and he said it back to me like he was testing the sound, as though it belonged in a poem. By the time we had gathered his things, he had asked if I was heading to the cafe just ahead. I nodded, and he smiled again, the kind of smile that felt like an invitation. We walked together, and I was struck by how easy it was, how natural it felt. He spoke about his favorite writers, and I found myself listening as if every word mattered. I confessed my habit of writing in notebooks I never shared with anyone, and instead of laughing, he looked at me like he understood. By the time we reached the cafe, it was as if we had known each other longer than a few blocks. He held the door open for me, and I stepped inside, my heart racing in a way I couldn't quite explain. Something in me whispered that this moment would matter, though I didn't yet know how. As we ordered our coffee, I found myself hoping he would sit with me, stay a little longer, let this accidental meeting unfold into something more. Thief found us. Before I could ask who, the ship was pierced by beams of crimson light. Another vessel emerged, dark and jagged, like a predator of the void. "The Veiler," he said grimly. "Our enemies. They feed on forgotten worlds. And they will take yours if they can." The walls opened, revealing a sea of stars beyond. He touched my forehead, and suddenly I could hear not only him but the ship itself, alive and frightened. "Help me," he said. "Join with us." I felt the ship's pulse sync with my heartbeat, and light poured from my chest into the vessel. It roared to life, arcs of energy lashing out, striking the enemy ship. I was no longer just a Lyra. I was part of something vast, ancient, and powerful. We fought among the stars, weaving through debris, our vessel singing with my voice. Fear and exhilaration blended until I no longer knew where I ended and it began. At last, the enemy retreated into the void, vanishing like smoke. The vessel calmed, and I collapsed again, trembling. He caught me in his arms. "You are stronger than I imagined." "I don't even know who I am anymore," I whispered. He leaned closer. "You are both flesh and starfire. And your journey has just begun." From that day forward, I was no longer bound to the village or the forest. I traveled with him across worlds, each stranger than the last. Jungles where the trees whispered secrets, seas that burned with blue flame, ruins where shadows moved on their own. I learned to wield my power, to heal with light, to shield with thought, to shape energy into blades that sang when they struck. Yet I never forgot the village, my people, my home. And one night, standing on the deck of the vessel, I asked him, why me? Out of all the voices, why was mine the one that answered? He gazed at the stars, and for once, his expression was unreadable. Because you are not afraid to laugh in the dark. That is what makes you human. And that is what makes you ours. The stars stretched endlessly before me, no longer silent, no longer distant. I was a Lyra, girl, sorceress, starlight's child. And my story had only just begun. The first time I returned to my village, it was no longer mine. Smoke curled above the rooftops, the fields were scorched, and silence pressed on me heavier than any enemy ship. I stumbled through the ashes, calling out, but no one answered. He, my guide, my companion from the stars, stood beside me, his silver eyes dim. The Veiler have been here, he said. They move quickly when they sense resistance. My chest felt like it was splitting apart. My family, my people, some may yet live, he said quietly. Taken, not destroyed. The Veiler harvest more than land. Rage replaced grief. For the first time since I had left, I unleashed my power without fear. Light surged from me, spiraling into the sky, a beacon against the ruins. Then I'll find them, I swore. I'll tear through every shadow in the universe until I bring them back. He nodded, but there was a shadow in his gaze. That was the first time I felt the weight of his silence. Our journey shifted from discovery to war. We hunted across worlds, tracing the Veiler's movements. They were parasites, feeding on memory and spirit. Every planet they touched grew hollow, its people mere shells, wandering without thought. Once, we landed on a desert world where once proud warriors had turned to statues of salt, their eyes still glowing faintly with stolen dreams. This is what they want for Earth, he told me. I swore again that it would never happen. I was not alone. Others answered the Kareth's call. A young boy from the Northern Isles who could bend fire with his voice. A woman of the southern sands who carried storms in her blood. Even an old hermit from the mountains, who had hidden his gift for centuries until the stars themselves dragged him into our fight. Together we formed something like an army, small, fragile, but burning with defiance. We struck the Veiler where they were weakest. Raiding their ships, freeing prisoners, unraveling their dark machinery. Each victory was small, but it lit fires of rebellion across the stars. I could feel Earth waking, whispers of forgotten power stirring among its people. Yet the more I fought, the more I sensed something was wrong. The Kareth guided us, yes, but they did not always tell the whole truth. When I pressed my companion, the one I trusted most, he evaded. His silence grew heavier with each battle. The turning point came above the shattered moon of Lytha. We faced a fleet 3 times our size. The Veiler descended, a tide of shadows blotting out the stars. We should have been crushed, but something inside me broke free. I no longer wielded light, I became it. My voice rang through the void, and the fleet faltered, blinded by the storm I unleashed. We drove them back, but when the battle was over, I collapsed into his arms, trembling. What am I becoming? I asked. He hesitated too long before answering. What you were always meant to be. That night, I dreamed of the river where it all began. My village was whole again, my family alive, calling me home. But when I reached them, their faces melted into silver light, and their voices whispered, "You are not ours anymore." I woke screaming, and for the first time, I was afraid not of the Veiler, but of myself. The truth unraveled soon after. The Kareth had not simply watched Earth, they had shaped it. Long ago, they seeded our ancestors with fragments of themselves, building us into weapons against the Veiler. Our magic, our humanity, was their design. We were not chosen, we were made. You lied, I spat at him, my hands burning with betrayed light. His expression did not change, but his silence cut deeper than any blade. Would you rather have died ignorant? He asked softly. Would you rather your people be consumed? I wanted to hate him. And yet, when I looked into his eyes, I saw something else, regret. He was as bound to his kind as I was to mine. Neither of us had chosen this war, but here we stood, caught in it together. The final battle for Earth came sooner than I had feared. The Veiler descended in force, their ships blotting out the sun, their shadows crawling across the oceans. The skies burned, cities crumbled, and for the first time, I saw humanity rise, not as prey, not as pawns, but as warriors. Sparks awakened everywhere. Farmers wielding fire, children summoning storms, elders chanting runes older than memory. The earth itself stirred, refusing to be devoured. We fought until the world cracked beneath us. I stood at the center of it all, the light within me raging like a star. My friends fell one by one, the boy of fire, the woman of storms, the hermit who gave his last breath to shield us. Their sacrifice burned into me, feeding the storm until I could barely contain it. At last, I faced the Veiler's heart. A being vast and formless, made of hunger itself. It whispered promises, peace, power, the return of everyone I had lost. For a heartbeat, I almost gave in. But then I remembered the river, the village, the laughter I had once known. And I realized, I was not made to be a weapon. I was made to choose. So I did. I unleashed everything, not to destroy, but to free. The light tore through the shadow, not burning it away, but dissolving it, revealing what lay beneath, 1,000 stolen voices, broken souls bound together. They scattered like sparks into the night, finally free. When the battle ended, Earth still stood. Scarred, but alive. The Kareth withdrew, their purpose fulfilled. But he, my companion, remained. You are more than either of us imagined, he said. You are not ours, and you are not theirs. You are something new. And so I stayed. I walk among my people once more, though I am not the same Elira who left. The stars still whisper, and I still answer, but now the voice I hear most clearly is my own. The war is over, but the story is not. For beyond the horizon, the stars are stirring again, and I know one day I will be called, not as a weapon, not as a chosen child, but as myself. And when that day comes, I will be ready.